Hello, everybody. It's Jeff Eichen here, and happy Father's Day. And today I'm reading from the book In My Father's Garden by Kim Chernin, and I just open it up and start reading. And so my shirt is Jethro Tull, too old to rock and roll, sitting on a park bench. So let me get the microphone closer to me here and change the mode. And here we go. So my father had a garden flourishing in full view of our backyard, but his garden might as well have been sealed in thorny fairy tale terrain. I was my mother's daughter, and since that I was meant to be, I managed not to take in the potency of my father's garden or meaning of the work he did there. My father's garden was a more subversive place in my father's garden. Kim Chaney, who has been called an eloquent and a passionate by the New York Times, is a writer of unusual powers and insight, and San Francisco Chronicle sets out to understand her own spiritual yearnings in my father's garden. Through the lessons of her father's garden, Chernin finds that the balance between the mind and the spirit, between contemplation and addiction. This is, to Chernin, as Publishers Weekly writes in its review, the basis for new spiritual politics, for in which her honest, fluent book she proves to be a passionate and gifted spokesperson. So I'm going to I Ching this and open this up and begin reading. It says, Maurice says that through humor, she and her mother share. Sometimes I think my mother is willing to die because it is the only way to retire from her business. Maurice can cry without crying. I have noticed this many times before, and she leans towards her mother to adjust the pillows, and her daughter's face shows the fugitive grief, tenderness, anxious concern, patience, and then a will to fight to keep the mother alive as long as possible, to see her through when it becomes necessary. I notice the way Maurice leans towards Lynn protectively, then shifts back towards me, and almost imperceptibly. Then Lynn tells me a story about her father. Maurice has not heard the story before, although she had been with her grandfather at home when he died of cancer, in a period when his pain became almost unbearable. Didn't have cannabinoids. He screamed out, asking Maurice's mother to help him die, begging her to shoot him, pleading with her. Lynn says, I've never been able to forget the screaming. I had forgotten, but I couldn't help him. Again, that look taking my measure. I unasked a question is coming closer. Lynn's gaze in anguish and shout heard from distance, setting all your resources on edge. You want to run towards, to help, to abandon, to save your own skin, something desperately vital to another person. And what if you don't have it? What if the best will in the world you are not able to help? At a time, Maurice says very carefully, my mother had me promise I would never let this happen to her. Some questions didn't get asked. If you want to hear them, you have to respond as if they've been asked. If you miss the opportunity, the silent question will die away and you will have answered in a negative. No word will have been spoken. I'm relieved when I hear myself, well, if the agreement you have reached and you need my help, of course I will give it. You understand that I'm asking what I'm asking. Lynn has not taken her eyes off my face. If the pain becomes too great and you want my help, Maurice, help you to die? I've always helped you to die. You want me to help Maurice to help you die. Let's have a good Father's Day and listen to Father's Garden here. I've always known to help anyone I loved, regardless of the consequences. I may have formed this resolution unknowingly during the long nights of my sister's dying room. We shared those. Those are the risks you take for love. Are they the risks you take for a stranger? I probably know more about Lynn than I do most of my friends. She is only a few years older than I am, and I too was a young mother married at 18, and I know what it is like to divorce young, and unpredictable moods direct anger at a small child. Nothing that concerns this mother and daughter is alien to me. Maurice has moved perceptibly in my direction. Do you know how to do it? We'll have to find out. When Maurice was growing up, Lynn was beautiful and hardworking. She drove a convertible, had blonde hair, and she would gather up Maurice and friends and carry them off to Clear Lake, Yosemite, Disneyland, Santa's Village. Maurice and her mother shared a bedroom in her grandparents' house with their dog, Susie. Maurice remembers her mother's perfume, bottles of her cowlick, cashmere sweaters. Maurice keeps her eyes on me. I know this is although I am looking at her mother, I can feel responsibility that just settled on my shoulders. I'm going to help Maurice help her mother die. If Lynn should ask me, because I'm not equal to the task, I will have to grow into it. Lynn says, into the enormous silence that has grown up between us. Do you promise? In the moment, I knew that Lynn does not have long to live. When they are leaving, Lynn has put her arms around me. As I begin to hug her, Maurice reminds me, you can't hug her very hard. She's in a lot of pain. My arms grow light, and I'm afraid to hug this woman who might be dying. Then my arms are moving with intention of their own. They start settling slowly around the dying woman's shoulders. They scarcely touch her, yet seem to have enfold the palpable radiance which she hands herself over with resigned, crumbling gesture, as if her will has now, after a lifetime of struggle, finally collapsed. Love you all, dads. Happy Father's Day. This is a incredible story of a daughter. Love is what I feel for her. It is in fierce, hot, protective presence. It had wild, willful intensity. It believes in itself against all odds. I'm experiencing Marie's extravagant love for her dying mother. I have become weighty, solid, large-breasted, reliable, tranquil. Because of this love, I will be incapable of letting her down. I know this. She knows this. Maurice has always known it. But what I have just become, I have never been before. If Maurice trusted me to be capable of her trust, has made it possible. Here, right here, being something has happened because of love. If I was talking to my father, I would now grow uneasy. I would not be like tell him about that episode when my arms set out on a mission of their own. But the time they embraced the dying woman, she was no longer a stranger. I loved to her. The set To set this love apart from the knotted, deeply rooted, far more complex love that grows up between people who share history, I call this a spiritual love. My father would have taken this love for granted. He would have seen no reason to call it spiritual. He certainly would have come up with a psychoanalytical explanation of countertransference, which by which so much genuine love between people who work intimately together is made recognizable simply as love. Undoubtedly, I love Maurice, my mother. Through Maurice, I was influenced in love by the years of work Maurice and I had done together. I brought this moment at this door with help and a dying person, and I had not been able to help my sister during childhood. I too have a mother who is infirm, and at the age of 93, always almost dying, there's a door where we are saying goodbye. And yes, doubly, a daughter prepared to love a dying mother. On Father's Day, mothers are connected to fathers. So, happy Father's Day, Howie, and all of you fathers out there. Past and present circumstance and the long relationship I'd already had with the daughter was sufficient an amount of love I felt. Even the way my arms took on a radiance so they could hug without hugging, embrace without pressure, even could be explained by the heightened, troubled drama of the moment. The spiritual element in this passing moment, which will be instantaneously made me different from that person I had been the moment before, was my understanding that I would receive the help I needed in order to give this dying woman. I was not alone. I would know what I needed to know at the time. Dying death itself would hold no fear. Because the three shared this experience, the bond has created between us and made us all larger than ourselves. Divine love, they say, draws those whom it seizes beyond themselves. If any one of us had been even slightly less receptive than we were as we stood at the door of this opening into the spiritual dimensions, might have not taken place. Stories have a mind of their own. Some tend to muse, mender, circle back, start over again. Others tend to throw up roadblocks. This refusal to get going is stubbornness and usually has a purpose. The writer is meant to brood, grow frustrated, and get on with it. Be yanked back. The story with so many beginnings, how stubbornly it returns to the moment at the door of the threshold that must approach from different paths before one can pass through the story. If my father were listening, Happy Father's Day, he would have begun to smile. To know my father was smiling, you would have read a slight deepening of the wrinkles around his eyes, the imperceptible reddening of his nose, and the quickly passing, almost tender expression of knowing sympathy for the storyteller out on a limb and to get back on course, scared of where the story is probably going, probably embraced. That moment, the door rolled back. That threshold. When we get beyond the story, we will take off on a mysterious path, which is birth and death for a brief time, and will be made companions. It will be Maurice who will bring them together unexpectedly for years of struggle to become a mother. This story must be told before we can cross the threshold. I danced with my father again. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So today we're going to go get arrested at the nuclear plant with Doug, and that's in a half an hour. So I'm going to shower up and power up and love that Kim Chernin book. I'll read more of my father later. It's good morning today. Happy Father's Day. And I'm transparent today so I can stay transparent. And Willie, we're coming for you. Okay. Don't bogart that joint, my friend. Pass it over to me. It's been a pleasure this morning. It's in my father's garden. My father had a great garden. I was on the roof of his house in Mexico. Tomatoes were plenty. I don't have that much sunlight here, but I do now. We're in the sun period. Let's go, tomatoes, go. So, love you all, and let's see if we can get a beer. So, love you all, everybody, and remember, you're not too old to rock and roll, Jethro Tull. Sitting on a park bench, snot is running down my nose. So, love you, everybody. And remember, 3, weed, 2, peace. F schedule 1. Morning reading today, Father's Day, 2025. We're going to get arrested today at the nuclear plant on Marystone Island. Look out for us. I'll be safe. I'm not crossing the road, just photographing.